Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Canadian Bowler. I'm Mike Petulli. I'm joined here today with Daryl Fitzgerald and special guest Lynsey Clarke. Thanks for joining us, Lynsey.
No worries. I'm really excited, guys.
So one of our, I guess the way we usually start out an interview is we like to give you the floor, sort of explain to us, I guess, who you are, I guess, who's Lynsey Clarke today. So go ahead.
How long you got? No. So Lynsey Clarke. So I'm an Australian Jackaroo, been in the Australian Bowls team going on nearly 20 years, which is pretty cool in itself. I'm 38 and I've been playing the sport for 27 years. Got introduced like a lot of people through my family, and I've managed to win a few titles along my way, and just love our sport. I love the people in it. I love we can go to pretty much any country in the world and feel welcomed, it's just a really great thing to be part of. Alongside my bowls aspirations and bowls career, I'm now a pathways coach with Bowls Australia, so I look after our Queensland athletes in our emerging and development space, so the ones that are sort of the next level Australian Jackaroos. So helping develop their game, be a bit of a mentor for them, just help them in life and their well-being and career outside of bowls and stuff like that as well, which is pretty cool. Also a mum and a wife, so I got two little ones, 6-year-old Kenzie, my daughter, and a 3-year-old boy, Harvey, Hurricane Harvey, I call him. I'm definitely very busy, but I love what I do. I love our sport, just very happy and content where I'm at the moment in the crazy state of the world.
Well, a lot said there. I'll just fill in a couple things. 5 World Bowl Championship medals, 4 of them gold. 2 Commonwealth Games medals, 1 gold. Like you said, you're the Queensland Pathway coach, and also for those of you that might listen to it, the host of the Right Line podcast with Bowls Australia, along with other hosts, obviously Val Febo, Clive Adams, and Carla Krasanik as well.
Yes, that is true. So some more things that keep me busy. I sort of fell into this, the podcasty hosting side by accident a couple of years ago. And I love, as I've mentioned, I love bowls and I love talking bowls and getting into people's head and just asking all the questions like I'm sure you guys do. So that's a fun part of our sport.
Yeah, so you did touch on it when you were sort of introducing yourself. So you're a pathways coach for Queensland. It's like, what exactly, I guess, can you just go into a little more detail about like what exactly the pathway coach does compared to, I guess, the main Jackaroos coach per se?
Yeah. So we're pretty lucky in Australia. Our main sporting governing body has supported a pathways program for a few sports across the country, and it's about trying to coach or find support for that group of players that are stepping up from just your social sports side of thing, but not quite in the elite level space. So in Australia we've got pathways coaches across the country, we look after those emerging level players and pathways players. We sort of introduce them, I think for me a little bit different because I was them once upon a time, so talking them through the journey from a junior player all the way through to an international gold medalist and how they can get there, just someone to support them in day-to-day life. So I'm a big contact person for them, and I love that personal side of the coaching role. So being there to answer questions about life or school or the parenting journey. We've got a few parents, new parents come through our squad, which has been cool. Talking about how to maybe balance life. It can be challenging at times, but if we have the right skills and stuff like that, we can definitely do whatever we want. So aside from that, I do actually coach bowls. So a lot of my crew obviously are very talented already, so I don't really coach the basics as such, unless there's a problem, they're not getting a forehand run. We might maybe analyse what their delivery is doing. But for the most part, it's just getting them on the green, talking them through some new drills or training strategies. They might be in a form slump, so we might sometimes just talking about that can get it off their mind. So, just be there for that. The Pathways program, we're hoping it develops. It's only been in existence since October 2020. And through that time, obviously, like everyone, COVID's impacted everything. So we've missed a few events and a few get-togethers, but it's about want to combine our pathways and emerging with our open and our para crew. We've got a really strong para squad over here in Australia now, which is awesome. They are inspirational, what they can achieve and what they can do, and they also teach us a lot as well. So just combining everyone and getting them to experience what it's like to be an elite athlete, but still actually having to have a normal life as well.
That's incredible. Being part of the development side in Canada, there's a lot of stuff that you said there that I feel that I do too as a development coach. Helping people come along, introduce them to the more competitive side of bowls, how to get to nationals, all that. For me as a player, being on the team and then transitioning over to coaching, it was a really interesting experience. I wasn't sure I wanted to do it at first. For you guys over there, you've got Gary, who's now the head coach, who was a former player. You've got obviously Karen Murphy, a longtime player that's now just transitioned over to coaching. With you in this role, do you see yourself eventually trying to make that transition and take the coaching path?
Look, I didn't initially. I took on the role or applied for the role because I'm passionate about our sport and development and my state of Queensland. I'm a really proud Queenslander. So I wanted our state to be better and our players to be better, and I wanted more Queenslanders in our national squads. Now I'm in it, and I was a bit like you. I'm a bit like, I'm not sure. I had a junior coaching crew in my club that I looked after, and that sort of kick-started my desire to help people. In terms of the national coach, I think, it's a big job. I know Gary, he didn't have much hair, but he's lost a lot of it. And Glass was the same, Steve Glasson before him. But the great thing about him and Karen and Glass before him is they're great people, and I think it's not just about coaching the sport, but the person as well. And I think you've had potentially them on your show, or they're going to be on the show, but they talk about people first, which is something I'm passionate about as well. So if that culture was the same, potentially I could go there. It is a massive job. I'm not sure my husband would like me to take it on. It's a lot of time away, and it's a big program to manage. But potentially that could be an avenue. I really love the athlete wellbeing space, so potentially going into an athlete wellbeing role and looking after that side for our athletes could be something I'd like to do. But the great thing in Australia, there's lots of opportunities, and for any coach from club level, they can step up to being an advanced coach. And if they wanted to coach our state and then progress, you don't have to be a great player to be a great coach. I think we've seen it across many sports for that to hold true. But I think, there's great opportunities in the coaching world, and hopefully if we get some international events happening, it'll be quite exciting. But it is a 24/7 job, the coaching role, I think, which I probably, as you'd know, you guys both being coaches, but you're on all the time. So if one of our players needs something at any stage, I'm always open. Give me a call or get in touch. So it is quite consuming, but when you love it, it's not too bad a job.
Being a life coach, I guess, I didn't realize was such an important part of the national team coaching, but I guess it would be something that would kind of go hand in hand with coaching people.
Yeah. I think that's what people don't realise as well, especially our youth coming through. They just want to play for Australia. But when you get there, you realise you really need to have your life in order to be totally focused on what you're doing. You need to be feeling up and about and making sure everything's under control at home for you to be in your best mental position. Bowls is such a mental game that everything, you need to balance everything right and blend it right. So you come in giving it your all and being in the best position for your teammates as well. So it is a huge part of making sure our players are in the best space to perform well on the bowls green.
Yeah, I guess you did touch on this earlier. So you're essentially going on 20 years playing with the Jackaroos there. Is there something specifically, or I guess for the long-term success, is there anything that you sort of would hold as like a key to your long-term success, or is it something that's just kind of been an ongoing process you've had to keep working on, like sort of get the life in order, as you're sort of saying?
Yeah, a bit of both, I think, and because my life journey's changed over those 20 years as well. It's changed about what's made me successful. I think this point in time, it's definitely the support and my support team I've got around me. So I've got a very supportive husband and my mum and his mum that help manage the load at home. We are away a lot. So with 2 little ones, we need to make sure our support crew's in order. And if I didn't have that, I couldn't do what I do. So I suppose, this point in my career, it's been the support, and even from our national team, they're really and have had to find their way with mums on tour and new dads and how we balance all that and making sure that, again, we're family first. If something ever happened at home, we know that we've got the support from our national team that we can manage that and be open to coming back into camp or whatever it is. So, probably that support. And I think early days, on the flip side, all I did was I wanted to play for Australia. I wanted to play at my best, and that meant training as much as I possibly could and putting the work in so that when I was given opportunities, I didn't hope to play well. I could develop my confidence because I'd done the work before. So I guess, and that's something I try and instill in my players now is, yes, we all want to play for Australia, and a lot of people have natural ability and they can get away with just being naturally talented. But I think when you're in the crunch, it's a world bowls gold medal match and you're down to your last bowl, the nerves are going to be there. You're going to be anxious. It's going to be a big stage, but you want your body and your mind to know that you have done this shot 1,000, 100,000 times before in training. So all the work you've put in is for this moment. I think, working hard early in the early stages of my career really, I guess, set me on the right foot. I think I've tried to be a good sports person, I guess, off the field as well. So making sure you're humble and gracious and all those qualities that really good athletes can possess. I've made sure I've tried to be that sort of person as well, which I guess has kept my longevity in our sport. If you're a great player but you're a bit of a dud person, I don't think that would float very well over here for very long.
So, talking about your long career, you've done so many things. We talked about, you're on the podcast, coach, won a ton of medals. What's the next big thing on your plate to achieve?
Look, I think for me, the World Bowls on the Gold Coast in 2020 was going to be a bit of a maybe finale for me. That would have been a home Commonwealth Games in my hometown, World Bowls in my hometown, sorry. So that was something that was a real big carrot. The fact that was postponed now till 2023, that's definitely something on my bucket list to try and make that team again, which is sometimes the hardest bit over here in Australia. We've got such depth and talent and quality, so to make that final 5 is a big journey. But I think the World Bowls in my hometown would be a pretty special one. Obviously, the Commonwealth Games is our next focus, so trying to get to Birmingham this year. Again, we've got a really talented squad. It's been, like every country, very disjointed, our prep and, trying to get some trials in and that sort of jazz has been tricky. But, doing everything I can to make that Commonwealth Games team, I think, is my next focus.
Yeah, Commonwealth Games, I guess, is the big one, as you're saying. So I guess Commonwealth Games is going to be in England. Traditionally, Australian teams have struggled to win a gold medal, I guess, at the Commonwealth Games on a Northern Hemisphere green. So I guess with the pandemic, everything that's kind of been happening over the last year, has there been anything specific or I guess any extra work that's being done in the background by the Jackaroos to try and potentially, I guess, climb that mountain, win the gold medals there on a Northern Hemisphere green?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, and mainly because we can't replicate the conditions in the green surface that they have in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're very spoilt with beautiful greens in Australia, which is our downfall sometimes when we travel elsewhere. But we've got some greens over here. So Mount Tamborine, one of the clubs in Queensland, have made a really lush, probably one of the most similar greens we can find in Australia to a UK condition. So we've got some really good greens to try as much as we can replicate that. We've also, Bowls Australia have employed Andy Thompson, one of England's greatest of all time, and Ellen Faulkner now on our HP team, and their knowledge and their skill over there in the UK for us to tap into that has been really great. We've had some Andy masterclasses, and so it's not, sometimes we do sort of know the style they play and how we should play, but it's just reaffirming that constantly. He's been great and so experienced and great to learn off. I think we've been doing a lot of virtual things like most people, so a lot of Zoom meetings, which I think it's probably made us tighter and stronger as a squad, I think. I don't know, like we don't have a lot of national squad camps in a year, but we've had a lot of Zoom meetings where we get together and just talk life. So I think that will definitely help the team that eventually gets selected. But just, I think, our mentality is we're not thinking, we've never won up there before. We were a silver medalist in Glasgow in 2014. So we feel like we've got a bit of unfinished business just to go that one step further. I think Glasgow was definitely one of our stronger performances. We got a couple of bronze and a silver. So we know we can get to that pointy end. We've just got to go that little bit more. And I think what Bowls Australia have tried to do with employing these people and trying to unite us as a team and be there and support each other will definitely help. Hopefully, us achieve our gold medal dreams in the UK.
Talking about the pandemic, obviously in Queensland, you've had, I guess, a little better process as far as being able to bowl and having a little more openness and not so many lockdowns. What's it been like for those in Australia with all the lockdowns and not being able to bowl at all?
Yeah, it's been really hard. And I am a Queenslander, so throughout the worst of it last year, we were really lucky. We only had some 3-day lockdowns here and there, and we were 1 or 2 cases every now and then. But that made it a bit challenging for our squaddies and our mates that are in Sydney or were in Victoria, and I think Victoria had the longest lockdown in the whole world. So it was a challenge, but I suppose we all we got together a lot with meetings and stuff, and we were all trying to find a bit of a silver lining. So whether it was taking on a new career, whether it was taking on some study, whether it was you're finding a new hobby, a few of our crew had babies in that time. So that, we try to make positive. We don't often have a lot of downtime. So it was challenging, I think, for those, those that were on their own, I think was probably the hardest. So we tried to get around those guys as much as possible. But there's nothing like getting back on the green. And I think it has definitely made people more hungry. And when we get out there, we managed to get an Australian Open in June last year, which looking back was incredible. But it was probably our Jackaroo, one of our most successful Australian Opens as a squad of Australian players, because we were just keen as mustard to get out there and compete. So I think that's definitely a positive out of it. I think bring on Commonwealth Games, because we haven't had an international event for probably 2.5 years by the time that rolls around.
Yeah, talking about the Commonwealth Games, there's kind of been talk that it's been on shaky ground at this point. Potentially could be one of the last Commonwealth Games where bowls is involved. So what do you think the Commonwealth Games means to bowls as a sport?
Oh, it's huge. It's our Olympics. It's the biggest thing you can aspire to. I know when I was a kid, I didn't realise, but when I was 11, my goal was to play in the Olympics for bowls. And then I got told a few years later we're actually not an Olympic sport, so that wasn't ideal. But Commonwealth Games is the same. It's a multi-sport event. So the fact that our bowlers, like in Australia, we could mingle with our swimmers, the boxing crew, the hockey girls, it was a huge experience in terms of an athlete to get that. I'd like to hope, I think, a lot of the countries that bid for the Commonwealth Games are bowls oriented. So hopefully there's a space there for bowls. I think definitely that potentially the way we run our sport in a Commonwealth Games may change. We've already seen, obviously, that the introduction of the red and blue bowls are going to happen, which I think will be great for the viewers at home, for people that might want to just tune in and watch a quick sport. That might be the next step. But I definitely think there's a huge space for bowls, and I think the more people that see it in a quick, fast format that's colourful or easy to follow, I think for a non-bowler, I think the key is it needs to be easy to follow, and you don't have to sit there for 3 hours and watch, like Test cricket. There's definitely a space for our traditional form of bowls, but I think things like the BPL we've introduced in Australia, or the quick, fast format, already in the World Bowls Tour, watching just green and red bowls is just easy. You can just tune in and watch it, and it's just easy to follow. So I'd like to think that we can develop our sport to be something that other countries that maybe aren't bowls mad would want in their Commonwealth Games, because people like to watch it. It's a fun thing to enjoy. You can easily get behind it, and it's just a great sport. So hopefully this won't be one of the last. I would like to think that bowls is around for the long term. And I mean, we'll always have our world championships and stuff like that, but I think Commonwealth Games is just a pinnacle because it's such a big event, and it's probably where most of our people get known. You know, we never get free to air TV really with bowls at prime time. So yeah, hopefully it continues on.
Keeping along that line, there's another role that we didn't mention at the beginning, and honestly, with being a mom and all those other things, I don't know how you can continue to do it, but you're also part of the Olympic Advisory Committee for World Bowls. And I would think that the success of Commonwealth Games, keeping it in the realm of bowls, making all these changes would directly affect what you guys are doing as far as trying to get bowls into the Olympics. Has there been a lot of talk about needing to change that format and not have long games, and some of the stuff that the Commonwealth Games is actually trying to do?
Yeah, 100%. The funny thing is we actually started the advisory group before the news came through that the Commonwealth Games, that bowls wouldn't be a core sport. So we've gone from being let's get bowls in the Olympics to kind of be like, okay, we need to make sure we also continue to get bowls in the Commonwealth Games. So, I mean, it does go hand in hand, everything we are discussing, and we're getting people to come in and help analyse some certain things, and it definitely will work together in that. I think we definitely have talked. It's an amazing group of people that's on the advisory group, and having all this knowledge from around the world and in the business space and the sports space is going to be fantastic. But yeah, we've talked about, we were watching, I think, rock climbing, all these random sports we watched in the Olympics. Like, why did we sit there and watch this guy climb up the wall and done in like a second, so what can we take with bowls to make it a little bit more attractive for a country that isn't bowls mad? Why would they want bowls? So it is talking shorter games, potentially less people, more colour, like all that talk's going around the table, and just trying to work out why people aren't maybe watching it, and how we could get them involved in some of these random sports that we sat there and watched. Why did we sit there and watch them?
That sounds like quite an interesting, group to be a part of, because a lot of those things are, experimental type of things that you almost want to see if it would work or what you could do to make it work. So I guess, is there any sort of like preliminary plans to test out any of these kind of maybe different formats or like more color, whatever it might be? Is there any sort of plans underway, or is that something kind of in the background there?
Yeah, it's sort of in the we've only had a couple of meetings at the minute, so just throwing around some ideas, just getting a general, like, where are we at now? I think that's our first port of call, getting some people in to advise us on that, looking into some research and stuff like that as to what we could do. Things like the BPL over here in Australia, I'm not sure if much gets televised worldwide, but that's been it started off, maybe 6 or 7 years ago as a little example or test run with short games, 2 sets of 5 ends, 1 end tie break, substitutes, crowds, colour, and that's just taken off in Australia. And now people have taken the BPL format into a club or into barefoot bowls, which is huge, but it's a little bit of a fun sort of game for just a random person to play. They don't even need to know bowls. So using that as a bit of a test case going forward might be good. I think Bowls New Zealand have done something similar with their Bowls 3-5 event. So yeah, they're definitely things that we can look at and see the success of and maybe build on. Potentially, I mean, I'm very much a traditionalist with my bowls, like starting 27 years ago. So, I'm all for the 3-hour match and hanging on to the last bowl and that sort of jazz. But I think there will be a space for that. But we definitely need to change the game to make it more attractive in this environment. People just want things quick and fast and easy. That's it.
I'm right there with you. I'm playing so long. I can sit there and watch a fours match for 3 hours and be perfectly fine and really engaged on what's going on. But yeah, you think about the casual fan, those that maybe just getting into it or just stop by to see what's going on, and they can't sit there for 3 hours and watch a match. There's no way.
And they wouldn't have any idea, and it's not easy just to jump in and follow. So if it was like a tennis game, like, oh well, that set's gone, this is exciting. They'll have, 5 ends to come back or whatever it is. So, yeah, I think we are progressing, and I think, there's such a big space that we could do more. But, it's just a little bit of more research, a bit more time, and, maybe doing some test runs out there.
Yeah, I think people are starting to realize that changes are needed to be made with the decline of players. And then looking at other sports that have made those changes and have had more success. I mean, rugby sevens. I wouldn't watch a rugby game normally. I'll watch rugby sevens all day and have no problem with it. So those kind of things really help.
I think that was the case when our cricket went to like the IPL, or we had the Big Bash here in Australia. I was not really a cricket fan, and then I started watching Big Bash because it was exciting. It was an hour, off we go, let's watch it colourful. And then now that has eventually got me into watching a bit of Test cricket. I'm like, actually, this game is actually pretty cool. Let me watch a little bit for a few days. So, that really helped, I think, bowlers go, maybe there is a space for something shorter and more colourful in bowls.
Absolutely. With all the stuff that you've got going on, you've now become sort of a part of Bowls Media. You've got the Right Line podcast under Bowls Australia. We see you on the sidelines of BPL. We do watch the BPL here. For those that are really hardcore and are excited for Bowls, we do watch the BPL and we enjoy it. And was really excited to see you sub for the Murray Steamers for a little while there. That was fun.
And Rhino, good old Canadian Ryan Vesta.
That's right. So definitely Canadians saw you play if they were watching Ryan play, that's for sure. How did you come into these roles and become such a part of that media side?
Yeah, look, I think I was pretty lucky. I think I'd done a lot of just basic commentary at the time. So going back 10 years, just jumping in, and I love talking, obviously, and I love bowls. So it seemed to be quite a good fit there for me. So, I just fell into doing some commentary behind the scenes. And 2 years ago, one of the Fox Sports host ladies couldn't make the BPL for I'm not sure what reason. Anyway, our marketing and communications manager asked if I'd be interested in doing this hosting role, live TV in front of the camera. And about 50% of me was really nervous, and because I am a fast talker, so I thought, I'm going to have to be. When you're live, you can't really afford to make too many bloopers. And then I was like, nah, let's go with it. So there 50% of me that went, okay, let's have a crack. Was the good Linny, so well done, Lynn. So I just went along, and then my favourite bit was they do your hair and makeup. I felt like a total celebrity there, so I'm getting my hair and makeup done and looking all fancy. And the bowls were, because I don't wear much makeup and I don't do my hair much, so they were very surprised. They're like, oh, Lynsey, there you are. Anyway, then I got out there super nervous, but the players, like, I know all of them. I know our game inside out, so I felt once I got going and I can slow down my talking, that I just loved it. I just loved getting into their head and maybe asking questions that a general broadcast host might not know because they're not into bowls. There's definitely a space for that as well. So Jack, who I work alongside of, is amazing and incredible professional. So he's a more professional one. I'm the more colourful one, you could say. I just love it. I fell into it, and now I'd much prefer, with the BPL, I prefer to host it, get in there with the action, ask all the questions, just really passionate about the game. So I think that comes through potentially maybe in when I'm hosting and asking these questions. So hopefully we get the next BPL off the ground at the end of February, and I can get out there again, and it's pretty fun. Oh, and the podcast. Sorry to interrupt. I do. We got the podcast going this year, and I'd never done a podcast before, so I was like, okay, do we need a camera? What are we doing here? So we got that off the ground. Mainly, we had lots of people locked down across the bowls world, across our country. So we thought if we could talk some bowls, a bit of banter, have a bit of a laugh, and maybe give some ideas to clubs that were in lockdown. And then now we've had some events go on, so getting some good guests on to talk about their life in bowls or their life away from bowls, or getting to know people aside from just the bowls face of somebody. So that's been really fun as well, and just love talking to people and talking our sport.
Yeah, I was gonna say, watching the BPL, it definitely comes through that you enjoy yourself and that you do have a good perspective when you're, as you say, you're interviewing people. You get right in there and you actually have a very, I guess, fun perspective to get that kind of the player side of it and know that sort of the background knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's quite enjoyable, very noticeable when you're watching the BPL.
Cool. That's good to hear.
Yeah. So I guess like the one other aspect we haven't really touched on was, I guess, sort of being a Jackaroo. So being part of the Australian national team, very prestigious. There's a lot of sort of expectations that go along with being a Jackaroo. So what sort of expectations, and I guess what do you do to keep your, I guess, to meet those expectations and keep your game at the level that it's required to be a Jackaroo?
Yeah, I think prior to COVID, we might just talk prior to COVID because the last 2 years it has definitely changed. But yeah, I think when I first came into the Australian team in 2003, we didn't really have a high performance program. It was sort of that you got picked if you won a few events or if you were sort of seen on the national scene, you got sort of picked into the team and off you went and good luck. But yeah, I managed to get under the wing of Karen Murphy, one of our greatest of all time, maybe one of the world's greatest of all time. And she sort of guided me along the way, and all that stuff I talked about off green, you know, her humbleness and being a good sports person and a good leader and a great mentor. I felt very lucky to be under her wing. But yeah, back then there wasn't too much going on, and we had Cameron Curtis and Ian Schuback jump on board and become our high performance coaches. And they put in a pretty strict high performance program. So it was about, doing our training drills probably 2 or 3 times a week. Or, it's not about potentially get out there for 2 hours. It's about making your time out there count. So for me, training for 2 hours, by the end of it, I'm just flat. My drill scores weren't great. So I worked out pretty quickly I need a short, sharp session. I might do a couple of drills in an hour and then get off, and then I'd come back the next day and do something similar. So yeah, it's just working on our drill skills. We do a lot of match simulations as well. So on the Gold Coast, there's a lot of Australian Jackaroos. So we try and catch up with each other when we can, and just go through maybe a singles or a pairs and do some match simulations, because skills are great for developing consistency, and then that confidence comes in a game because you can utilise that. But there's no good just being a great skill player. You need to be able to put that into action when the pressure's on and you're in a game situation. So doing a lot of match simulations was important. And then our fitness and psychological side as well. So we're expected to do 3 training sessions a week, and that's a mixture of strength and endurance sort of work as well. And then just working on our mental side. So we've had sports psychs, we've had books to read, we've had podcasts these days to tune into, but that mental side is such a big component of our sport that if you've got that right, then the rest will come. If you've put in the work on the green and you've got your mental side right, then that's a perfect recipe for success. So it is we're expected to do a fair bit, but it's such a prestigious place to be. And sometimes you're like, oh no, I've got to get out there and do another drill, or I've got 1 session left, and you don't feel like it. But you've got to, what motivates us, I think, is the fact that there's very few people that can play for their sport in anything. And in the bowls world, people are biting at our heels in Australia to get our spot. So for us to keep our spot and retain our position, we need to be doing the work. Otherwise, you'll be found out very quickly. But yeah, and then just getting together at events where we can, and making sure when we've got opportunities that we're playing the best we possibly can, so that you Australian selectors are watching all the events across the country. So we want to make sure we're performing well domestically as well as internationally.
So you were talking a little bit earlier about obviously you've got a new coaching staff. I mean, Gary's been a part of it for quite a long time, moving into the head role, and now you've got Karen in there, and that a good reason why they're so good in their spots is because they're good people. Watching the Australian team work together over the years in different formations and different people, it always seems that you guys are super chummy, get along really well. Is that a really important aspect of why you guys have so much success? success?
Oh, yeah, I 100%. I think so, and I think that the staff has changed over the years, but it comes kind of that those values and that culture comes from the top down. So our CEO and the board, everyone's very supportive of the high performance space. We've got a great team leading the development of the sport and the grassroots level. So we were able to manage all facets, I guess, of bowls in our country. But that support and that culture, it starts at the top, and then our coaching staff feel that, and they're able to bring that, and then our playing group also feels that. We're not all best friends, but we know that when we get together, we love each other's company, we can respect each other, and we know that we've all done the work to ensure that we're going to be at our best together. And we're always supportive of each other. If anyone's out there, we're right behind their rink supporting them. If anyone's struggling just in life, we're all behind them as well. So we definitely have a great cultured program. And I think the main thing is we just love what we do. We all feel very fortunate to be in that space. I think through our first lot of COVID lockdowns, it was a big shock to everyone in the bowls world, because a lot of us worked in clubs, I had jobs coaching, that sort of stuff, and that just shut down, and we had nothing. So it was a scary time, but the fact we had our support network was a massive saviour for a lot of us, I think, and that's made us stronger again. But yeah, it's a culture, and it's a philosophy that starts from the top and just filters its way through, and I think it makes us as a Jackaroo come out the other end when we retire or we're finished as better people just in life. So I think that was one of their key principles from Bowls Australia, is making us better people, and that starts at the top. So yeah, very, very fortunate.
So there'd be a lot of bowlers out there that look up to you, sort of the achievements, everything you've done over your career. So pretty big inspiration to a lot of up and coming players. So what kind of advice would you offer to anyone trying to make it to the international stage or trying to make their country's national?
There's a lot. I'd start with, you have to love what you do. If you don't love it, then you're not going to, the hard times are hard. It's not all rosy, smooth sailing, wonderful gold medals all the time. There's times where we've struggled or we've had major disappointments, the heartbreak that we've got to bounce back from and be resilient about. But if you love it and you're that passionate about it, then you'll work harder to make sure you don't feel that way ever again. So I think you've got to love what you do. Like I said earlier, you've got to put the work in. So you've got to train your butt off so that when you come to you might just be given one chance. They're sick, you've been called into the Australian team, you need to know that this is your one chance and you're prepared because you train as much as you can, you've performed as well as you can in events, things like that, and that you're not going to hope that you play well, you're going to know you can do it because you've put in the work. So love what you do, work hard, and just have a good support network. I think surround yourself with people that believe in you, that are willing to help you achieve what you want to in any way they can. I think you can't do it on your own. So making sure you've got a good support network, and making sure you appreciate them, because you get to the end and you've won a gold medal. It's not just yours, it's everybody's. So I think sometimes my family appreciate or love or enjoy that success sometimes more than you do or I do in the moment, and that makes me really proud. A lot of what I do is for my crew, not just myself, which is pretty cool.
So the final question from me. Over the pandemic, we've seen, I guess, a fair number of high-profile bowlers retire. Got Joe Edwards in New Zealand. Sharon McElroy took a little hiatus. Karen Murphy retired. Steve Glasson moved on from the national team as well. Are you surprised by a lot of these moves with the 2-year break?
Yes and no. A lot of those guys have been like me, 20, 30, 40 years in the sport. And I think Glass and Kaz, it was 2019 when Kaz retired, so it was prior to, she must have known that we're not going to have international events for 2 years. But Glass, I think he was 10 years in the role, and it was the end of, I guess, the Australian-New Zealand campaign that we had for those 10 years, and it was going to the UK, so he felt it was time to start a new chapter. I think Joe and Shannon had stuff going on. It didn't really surprise me because it is a lot. I think for, like I said, our support networks as well, it's a lot for everyone to keep the balls juggling in the air and keep it it's smooth sailing. I think, and those guys, like I say, they've been involved for a long, long time. So potentially, different opportunities, or maybe wanting to spend more time with family. If you experience then, that time that, we've had a lot of downtime from our sport, which we've probably I've never had in 20 years. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is quite nice actually to see your family and make birthday parties and see your friend have their baby and go to a wedding. Like, a lot of the time we haven't been able to do that. So I think it depended on how strongly motivated you are to still have things to achieve, or if you just wanted to go down a different path. So it was surprising, and it wasn't in the same boat. Like, I think they easily could have gone on to be successful in what they were doing, but I can easily see how they maybe had different goalposts. So yeah, sad. I think it's sad for the sport, because they were icons, and they still are icons of our game, but now just in a different way.
Well, I guess Daryl said that was the last of his questions. I don't have anything else that I really need to ask here either. So is that all we got here, Daryl?
I think so. Yeah. It's been fantastic. Lynsey, we were so pumped to hear that you were going to come on the show and interview with us. Obviously, we see you on BPL, hear you on the Right Line podcast. I know you. A lot of people know you just from seeing you play. I've been fortunate enough to see you play in person, which is fantastic as well. So just fantastic, and thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, no worries. Hopefully we can see each other again one day. Yeah. But keep doing, I think things like podcasts and this, getting out information and, good stories out to the bowls world in this time is super important. So great job to you guys as well, and look forward to tuning in.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.